spiritual food for thought.
So this one's going to be why I think you should live a questionable life. And, at surface value, you hear a title like that, it doesn't sound very good, that you should live a questionable life. But what I mean is that you should live a life that is so thought-provoking that people actually ask you questions, because when they do ask questions, kind of like I brought up in my last video, then you have an obligation to give an answer. And we should be ready to give an answer for the hope that we have. I know a brother back in my home state of Wisconsin, and he is so good at living a questionable life where he'll be in the midst of something and they'll be working high, up on something, and somebody's like, oh man, like, how can you do that? Aren't you scared of heights? And he'll be like, well, no, there's only two things I'm afraid of, and that's, failing my God and failing my family. And they'll be like, what? And they'll ask these questions, or what do you mean by that? And he's really good at kind of answering things in such a way that people really have no frame of reference in the natural world without a spiritual mindset to really categorize it or process it, to the point that they need more information. Therefore, they ask him, and then he's able to point to God, point to the scriptures, point to Jesus, point to, why there is a difference in his life, in his mindset, in his goals, and the way he lives, and in everything. So I think that I really learned a lot from him. I really appreciated, because what he would also do then, as he talks to the other believers, you ask him about his day, he'd be able to tell you an example like, I had a pretty good day today. I was working with this guy, and he'd give you an actual, food for thought on the matter. He would actually provide some thought-provoking experience for another believer to consider and be like, this worked out rather well. For him, no. For the other person, well, no. Ultimately, it worked out well for God because of his faithfulness, that the other person could be exposed to the truth of the gospel, to the situation that they're in. Because if we're dealing with a lost world full of unreconciled sinners, and if Jesus died for all mankind, and all they got to do is receive this free gift he's trying to offer them, so they can enter this relationship with him, to be born again, to leave their former life behind, to be conformed to his image, then it's our duty as stewards of the truth to be faithful. And I think that it's kind of like walking around with the cure for cancer and not really mentioning anything to anyone. Sure, first you've got to kindly and gently let them know that they need a savior, but there's ways to do that, and I think that living a questionable lifestyle is one. So as we kind of interact with others, it's hard to bring things up. Like, you can be like, hey, can I ask you a spiritual question? I actually did that on the phone with a lady earlier today, and she says, well, sure, and we were able to then have a spiritual conversation. But if people give you the green light, and if it's more of a conversation than a presentation, if you know the truth, if you know what you would like to share, and if you're able to kind of, do somewhat of a bit of leading the witness, where people think about death, people think about the wrong and the suffering in the world, people think about, the implications of if we're really just a bunch of mutated amoebas that were mutated monkeys, that life has no purpose and do what you want, and how that really doesn't fit into a lot of the things that we deal with in life, that if we can kind of have them, in their interaction with us, actually begin to think about things that leads them to ask questions, I think it's a great thing. A lot of times our children, I remember hanging on to babies, and then as they got older and they would come out with us, as we would just interact and talk with people, and they're exposed to a lot of these things, and they realized a real need for people to understand the truth. I remember eating lunch once at a picnic table in our front yard in the city, and some people came walking by with their dog or something, and we had, she was 3 or 4 at the time, but she goes, excuse me, do you know Jesus? But when a kid does something like that, then all of a sudden, hey, look, you're having a spiritual conversation just like that. It wasn't that difficult. So, like I said, guys, our days are limited. We have a very interesting position to be in. And I don't think God takes it lightly that we understand the truth, and there's a bunch of people all around us who don't. And it can be hard with strangers, it can be hard with friends, it can be hard with family, but it was probably hard to go through everything that he went through on the cross too. And if we're supposed to follow his example, then we can leave our comfort zone as he did. We can do things that are difficult, and if he's there to help us and empower us, and especially our, blessed are we when we're rejected for his name's sake, well, let's at least give people a chance to reject us for his name's sake. But rather than running up to everyone and, screaming in their face like my young child would, hey, do you know Jesus? Sometimes it's better to live a questionable lifestyle and, just be different. A lot of people have said, who knew us before have said a lot of different things about us now, but it causes them to question things because they just see things completely different in our life, and it causes them often to ask questions. So just wanted to provide that as some food for thought. Hopefully that helps some of you out there. Be blessed. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.